Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the zoo. The minions with me tonight are Adam,
How's it going?
the Hairy Channel.
Good evening.
Traveling exhibits are Snowpilot,
Hello.
JenTMaxi,
Hello.
and of course, I'm the keeper for the night, Sanguine. How are all of you doing tonight?
Oh, yeah, no.
Fair enough. Any
Wait,
of you have?
the two guest appearances, are they Canadian? Are they both Snowpilot? Are you Canadian?
By blood. Not by,
By blood.
by blood. My family is Quebecois.
Oh
Ah.
shit! Quebec. He's Quebecian.
So
Hi.
not only Canadian, but French Canadian.
Oh jeez.
Oh yeah.
Well, you're not the only guy I know from Quebec. The other guy I know sounds just like Jean Chrétien, only he's
Oh
conservative.
no.
He's amazing, actually. If I ever get a chance to invite him to talk to you guys, the thing is though is he doesn't always understand the English. Like he's really good at it, but every once in a while it'll throw him. So he'll antagonize people unintentionally with that, because he has that sense of humor too. You know, like. Yeah, I'm gonna totally poke you in the worst way, but I'm still gonna make you laugh at the same time because it's gonna be the hard truth.
What is that?
All right. Fair enough.
Quebecian type of humor?
It's French type of humor.
Get
Yeah.
out of here! No, it's not.
It's
Those Frenchies, they like onions. Get out of here.
Oh no.
it's a blunt way of picking out what it is about you. That's probably the weakest link about you, and they will do it in a way that's like not meant to be rude, but it is rude. And they'll play it off like they don't know what they're doing, but they know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, that doesn't sound appeasing in the least.
Oh, it's funny as fuck if you know what they're doing.
If you're on their end,
Well, that's the thing though. I don't know. I've never been on the wrong end because I don't really hang out with a lot of Quebecois. I'm from Alberta, so you say Alberta and you walk into Quebec and they're just looking at you like, oh, you dirty Englishman, and we're
Yeah.
just like, we're not really English here. I hate to break it to you.
I don't know. We kind of look at
no.
them like they're Canadian, and that's about that.
Her Britannic Majesty is on your money.
Oh,
You're
I know.
English.
Oh, I know. I think if you really want to know my family history, my side of the family is super Scottish.
Oh,
And when we came here, my grandfather was Protestant. He was actually a priest. And I honestly think he took one look at Canada, he took one look at England, he took one look at the US, and he was like, I'd rather deal with the natives. And it was just like, as long as we don't make a lot of noise, nobody knows anything.
You can sneak by.
That's actually fairly true when you come out here. It's not like we didn't have to deal with who we had to deal with. We did. But it was just like, you know what? If we just don't talk about it, they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, yeah. And honestly, the relation here up here with the natives isn't as bad as they like to make it out to seem. Like, yes, we've had arguments. They were bad in terms of legal battles, but we have a better relationship with them than they make it out to be. Like, I don't know, man. I mean, you always have argues with when it comes to money. I mean, that's like a given, but like honestly, I don't know.
Well, the funny.
What do you live with a bunch of Jews? Arguments over money?
Wow. Wow, we're starting early tonight.
I was gonna say, like,
Then.
You know what? You're saying Jewish, but
Jesus.
you have to take into account that my parents were like my family line from my dad's side was Scottish. So you want to talk about another group of people that are really fucking cheap? They're cheap too. And then my mom's side of the family is from Austria. So yet again, they sound pompous, but they're broke as fuck. So yeah.
well, you know them Scots.
Yeah, it's kind of
Fucking
like
cheapy Scots.
They
people.
are. They actually
Scots, Hindus, and Jews are all trying to see who can out cheap each other.
I may have bitten off more than I
Islanders
can chew
picking up
tonight.
It is actually a thing. Like,
Holy shit!
if you look at a lot of the big business owners where when they crossed over to the US, the Scots took advantage of the fact that they were finally free. You know?
Well, yeah.
So
As you would.
it's same with the Irish. Like you guys have a lot of guys who are just like, oh, all of a sudden I'm free, and they educated themselves. So
But we kind of had the same thing here. Like you go down to not northern Appalachia around like the Virginia area, but you go down like towards the Carolinas type of Appalachia. It's all freaking Scots Irish. And you want to see a rebellious bunch, that's where the moonshine culture came from. It was like, oh, you want taxes? No. It was just straight up, no.
Yeah.
So it continues. That portion of the country is very much as independent as you can get on this side of the Mississippi. Sad to say.
Is this where the original Whiskey Rebellion started?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Yes, it absolutely is.
Yeah. George Washington was like, "Come on, man. We
Like,
just want
come on. Help us
Come
out.
on, man."
Don't tell a bunch of Mix and Max that they aren't allowed to brew whiskey.
Oh, jeez.
The moment that you go up to a bunch of Mix and Max and go, okay, you lot, no more whiskey.
Yeah,
Well, it
it
wasn't no more
They're
whiskey. It
allowed
was
to
like,
brew
all right,
it.
look, you want to brew it, that's fine, but we have to
Gotta
pay
give
for
us
the
some
war,
coin.
and they're like, no.
Yep.
Give
I
us
still
some-
love the reason why Irish whiskey is its own distinct style. Do you guys know the major difference between Irish whiskey and Scotch?
Pete.
That's one of the two. There's one that's even more drastic.
you.
Wine
And it's-
barrels.
I'm
A-
waiting. I'm waiting till it hits that old Mississippi River.
It's a difference in the ingredients. Because in Scotch, it's malted grain. And it's supposed to be effectively 100% malted grain. In Irish whiskey, there was a tax on malted grain, especially on malted barley, the grain that you want to use when brewing your whiskey. And the Irish went, fuck it, can we do it with unmalted? Maybe, let's give it a go. They found out that they could do it with a mix of unmalted and malted, and ever since, Irish whiskey uses unmalted grain as well as malted grain, which is one of the defining features of Irish whiskey.
So it's a lighter flavor as a result, if I remember correctly.
Yep. It gets lighter and almost a nutty note to it as well.
I mean, I'd have to taste some samples just to be sure. But
I can
Gotta
confirm.
quality control that.
I would agree.
One of my
What
former
needs to be
coworkers. Sorry.
Done for that, Adam, is we need to get another get-together going so that I will bring my box of booze and bread.
No, your box of booze is death.
A box of booze is heaven.
Yeah, we'll go
You
with
can
that.
make
Sure.
the booze box out of lambus loaf, and then you could kill two birds with one stone.
No, I'll take the lamp.
like
I'll
make a-
take the loaf 100%.
I have to try this at some point.
Jesus.
I keep hearing about it, and I'm getting kind of hungry just thinking about
yeah,
it.
the only
Good.
oh, is this the prison loaf? Because the only version I've seen of that is the one that Emmy
Prison
made.
loaf.
Eh?
No,
So-
it's not punishment loaf.
Okay.
Lambus loaf.
Because she
Sustaining-
described that. She's just like, it's not like you can't eat it, but it's just super duper dry.
Okay, so
If you can shave it up your ass.
There's-
Prison loaf.
there's two names for the type of bread that Adam's referring to. There's the name that's preferred by
Lambus
Skep,
bread.
which is lambus loaf.
Yeah, dude.
And then there's the original name that I dubbed it with, which is hangover loaf.
Yeah.
And what hangover loaf or lambus loaf is is, you know, a standard 1 pound size loaf of bread?
Mm-hmm.
So in that 1 pound loaf of amazing, delicious, white, handmade bread is over a pound of smoked bacon.
Oh.
And over a pound of smoked cheddar cheese.
Ah, you're trying to kill me. I understand now.
So every single bite, you get this fluffy, delicious white bread that is surprisingly dense. I don't know what it is about how I make bread, but when I make bread, the loaf weighs more than it should. And normally when you get bread that weighs more than it should, it means that the texture on the inside won't be as light and fluffy. You slice into my bread, and it's beautifully light, fluffy. You can see all the little air bubbles and amazingness. So I don't know where the weight comes from in my bread, but my bread weighs at least like 1.5 what a standard loaf should. So rather than a 1 pound loaf size of bread weighing a pound, or about a pound, mine will weigh about a pound 0.5. And then with the lambus loaf, add in the bacon and cheddar, and you're looking at over 3 pounds of bread in a 1 pound loaf size.
Yeah, he's trying to kill me.
And it is.
Well, I was gonna joke
amazing.
that hangover food up here, well, at least where I am, is effectively McDonald's with maybe Gatorade. But yeah,
anything to get the salts back in you.
McDonald's and Gatorade.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
sounds about right.
Yeah.
Lambus loaf or hangover loaf gets salt back in you because of the bacon and because of the cheese. It gets. There's been some studies that show that the flavor compounds that grant the smoky flavor and grant the smoky scent also have some nice effects when it comes to headaches and shit like that. It can open up some blood vessels, making it a bit easier on you. So it has the smokiness. It has a beautiful bread which kind of soak up some of the stuff still in your stomach and make it a bit easier on you. So it is and then the fats, which also have been shown to help with dealing with alcohol. So
Dude,
it has everything that you need in order to deal with alcohol.
You just need a slice of this and you'll be set.
Yep.
I mean, after a long night of partying, that's all you need.
Well, see, therein lies the problem because I don't party like that. So
Me neither.
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason I know about this stuff is because I worked in areas of my city where I was close to, like, red line kind of areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you probably know what I mean, Snow, when I say something about the stampede, because every province, every city has something effectively like it.
Oh yeah.
I lived like within 2 to 3 blocks from that. So when I say party town, it was party town.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that made living there worthwhile was the fact that I also lived on the Bow River. So every night we would have fireworks and it would set off all the geese. And Canadian geese do not like fireworks.
Nice.
So I mean, there was that. But yeah, it sucked. I mean, it doesn't if you're wanting to make money. I was griping about that this morning because the COOF has killed the Stampede for us yet another year. And as much as I disliked it as a city dweller, I loved it as a person who likes making money.
Mm-hmm.
Tourists are awesome,
They really,
except when as long as they leave.
yes. And American tourists are really nice because they don't understand that your money means a lot more to us.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's $1. Really? That's it? Like, no, you don't understand.
But yeah, no, it's going to be sad for that, and honestly, it is really sad because there's a lot of connections that get made up here because of it. Like it's a business. it's a business thing in a lot of relationships, and man, the amount of cowboy babies. So yeah, that's been a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna miss the weird fair food though, because the last couple of years it seemed like we're gonna contest it. Let's see how gross we can make this shit. And I was like, can't
Oh,
we
but
just
see, because that fair food can be awesome if it's done right.
right?
Yeah, there's two main varieties of fair food.
Mm.
There's the fair food that seems to try to show off how good they can make the food,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's the you bring us fucking anything and we'll fry it. You give us a shoe, we'll fry that son of a bitch.
Yeah, the last couple of years it was all about the weird kind of bugs. Like, what kind of weird bug shit can we put on your food? And I was like, listen, I don't mind doing that on like a stream where I'm getting paid to do it, and it's for laughs. But I'm not paying like $8 for a piece of pizza that has a scorpion on it. Go fuck yourself.
Okay, I do have to admit, some bugs are actually fairly tasty.
Don't care.
Yeah.
Seriously, don't care. I'm not good. I don't care. You could tell me it tastes like the finest steak or the most delicious wine. I'm still no. No.
Fried silkworms are like nature's popcorn.
I will take your word
Awesome.
for it.
That's great. Hope
Ugh.
you know. I mean, yeah. I'll probably be dead before bugs become my only food option.
I would never say go to a bug-based diet, but
Yeah.
I am all for. You see something that you haven't eaten before? Fucking go for it. If it's a
Yeah, go
bug,
full Darwin
give
on
it a
it.
taste.
Go full Darwin on it. It's fine.
Yeah,
You know,
I've said
that's just
many-
trying all the mammals. And I'm all for that, but I don't think I particularly want to get into eating insects. I feel weird enough about just eating shrimp because I know it's essentially a sea insect.
Yeah.
But I can think differently about it if there's enough butter or tomato sauce involved.
Nah, dude, there's not enough butter.
Sanguine, the other thing you got to take offense to, and this is the thing that you got to appreciate in my town. Alberta is really well known for its AAA beef. Like, you know, we're kind of on the map for our beef. You know, we're kind of like Texas for our beef. So the idea that they're pulling that kind of shit when we're all like, yeah, we know that the last couple of years we had huts with like really good burgers, really good steaks, really good briskets, that kind of thing, you know.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden you're presenting pizzas with scorpions, and we're just like, so you guys have been going, you've been going that crowd, haven't you?
See, like I said, I have always been of the sort that
Yeah.
I will try any animal dead at least once as long as it's not intrinsically poisonous.
It's not on fire, Elwyn. It's just we're getting really, really broke, and the people who keep demanding programs don't understand that money has to come from somewhere.
But the money comes from other people.
Yeah. Well, the other people are fleeing because they have money, so they can do that.
Yeah, they just haven't quite figured out that the problem with spending other people's money is that eventually you run out of other people's money to spend.
That's exactly
Yeah,
the
well.
problem. You know, I'm just like I'm glad that I don't live in an area where if I were to grow food outside my backyard, I can still do that. I can still do that, thank God. But I don't doubt the next step will be, you're fine for having a garden that has vegetables in it.
And the thing that pisses me off the most about the how do I want to phrase it? I'll have to think for a moment in order to phrase it right so that it comes out right.
Can I lambast the cartoon?
Yeah.
Aperture. Yeah. Listen, lady. Okay. Just because I'm growing a couple of tomatoes and green beans doesn't mean I'm fucking able to feed my family. You dumb cunt. Yeah, this lady fucking coming over, leaning over my fucking fence and saying, "Wow, why don't you feed your family? Why don't you go fucking get the fuck out of here, lady? Who the hell is this? I don't understand."
I think I figured out the way I want to phrase it. So
Okay.
the way that I want to phrase it is the people that are so gung-ho about the fucking punitive tax system. They aren't trying to come up with a tax system that will actually work. They're trying to come up with a tax system that punishes the people that they want punished.
Mm-hmm.
Those people are absolutely fucking ruining shit.
So, opportunists.
They're a poison pill to any conversation about taxes, because it stops being what is the fair amount that any person should pay, what is the limit on the percent that any person should pay, and what are the things that should increase and decrease the amount that someone should have to pay. They just go, no, fuck it. I want to take all the money from these people because they need to be punished. Why do they need to be punished? Because they need to be punished.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they have money. What's negative about them having money? I don't have money. They have money. Fuck you. How about that? How about that as the answer? Fuck you. Because the punitive tax system is complete horseshit. It doesn't do anything of any sort of value. The reason why a lot of the things that they bitch and moan about, but the millionaires aren't paying their fair share. No, here's what's happening. The millionaires are paying the amount that the millionaires have to pay. And what they've done is you've made it such that they are incentivized to find the best goddamn accountants that they possibly can. Because all those tax credits that are available to you are also available to them. So what happens is you don't know all the tax credits. I don't know all the tax credits. Hell, most accountants don't know all the tax credits. And the ones that know more tax credits than others cost more money. But the thing is that you or I, when we're dealing with our taxes, we reach the break-even point fairly fucking quick, where it doesn't make sense to pay more in order to get more or in order to prevent paying more, because we will reach the point where the amount that we're paying in order to save exceeds the amount that we're saving. So we have a much lower break point. Whereas when you're talking being a millionaire or fucking billionaire or being a multi-billion-dollar corporation, well, suddenly the having to pay someone $200,000 in order to get a 2% tax credit, that's actually fucking worthwhile. You're breaking at the very worst, even at the low end, and at the high end, you're making money hand over fist. Whereas if we had a simplified tax system where what you see is what you fucking do, so you make below this amount of money, you pay this percentage of tax. Are there any tax cuts? No. You make below this amount of money, you pay this amount of tax. That simple. Suddenly people are paying the amount that they should. Now what you do is you make it a simplified tax system like that, and then you lower the percentages so that every percentage is the amount that it actually should be rather than what it is currently, which the government sets the tax brackets how they do, then they put out a bunch of these tax credits, which would lower your effective tax bracket, right? It would lower the percent that you have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And you qualify for a shit ton of different tax cuts and tax credits and all the other distinctions of you pay less in taxes. But you don't know which ones you qualify for. The government knows which ones you qualify for. You don't know which ones you qualify for. And the government won't tell you which ones you qualify for. So you have to pay someone else in order to figure out which ones you qualify for. Which the government's just relying on you not figuring out all of them. So they get more money from you than what they actually, if you got all the tax credits should be paying.
Well, look at
And okay,
look at leading up to the 2016 election, right? It was like Donald Trump needs to release his fucking tax records. Like, why?
yep,
Why? He has an army of fucking lawyers and accountants that are going to nickel and dime the federal government to death.
yep.
And it's the same rules you play by. He's just better at it.
Yeah, the thing is that our tax system is an indirect subsidy to accountants. That's what our tax system is. And all we need to, if we wanted it to be a proper tax system, a properly fair tax system, and have everyone paying their fair share, you simplify, you get rid of tax cuts, you get rid of tax credits, and you just lower each of the tax limits. So
well, you take away the incentive for somebody to want to leave.
Yep.
Right?
And
look at what's happening with frickin' New York and California. People are fleeing in droves because it is no longer. Frick, Boeing is looking to get the hell out of Seattle. We've only been there for 100 fucking years.
Yeah. What you need to do is you need to figure out the point where it is everyone looks at the amount that they have to pay and they go, yeah, it's easier to pay that than to do anything else.
Yep.
And when you do that, guess what? The government will probably get more fucking money than
not probably
currently. And the people will feel like they're being less screwed over.
Mm-hmm.
It's a win fucking win. That's how shit should be. But no, they keep on trying to say, well, if you do that, then that's a tax benefit for the rich. No, it's a tax benefit for fucking everyone. Because it looks like they're getting charged less, but they pay about the same, or some people will pay a little bit more, some people will pay a little bit less, but it'll be simple and it won't cost the amount of money that it currently does in order to figure out your fucking taxes. So everyone becomes happier at the end of it, except for the people that want punitive taxes. Those are the people that are the poison goddamn pill in the discussion. And it pisses me off because every single time that there's a tax credit, the way that they calculate which group gets a majority of a benefit from a tax cut is fucking retarded. So you guys heard the stat that was brandied about throughout most of Trump's administration that the Trump tax cut was an 85% tax cut for the wealthy. 85% of it just benefited the wealthy. Do you guys know how they calculated that?
With an abacus is the only way I can come up with.
So the way that they calculated that was they looked at the gross amount of money saved by the top tax bracket versus the gross amount of money saved by everyone else. And then they divided by the population. So for the gross amount of money that was saved by the wealthy, they divided by the number of people within that tax bracket. And then they compared that to the gross amount of money saved by everyone else. And then they divided that by the number of people in that tax bracket. And then they compared the number size. So for anyone not understanding what that means, let's imagine that you and I, Snowpilot, are going to buy something that costs $100. And let's say I just had to get something fairly expensive. I had to swap out my oven in my house. So what happened was I was going, I'm a bit strapped for cash at the moment. I had to swap out a number of things. Is it okay if I can only chip in $10? You just got your paycheck. You haven't had anything go wrong. You have good savings. So you go, sure, I'll chip in the $90. You chip in the $10. Good to go. That means that we're able to meet the $100 limit, correct? Nice and simple there. Now let's say that we go to buy whatever we're buying for the $100, and we find out that it's on sale for 10%, or at a 10% sale. So rather than costing $100, it only costs $90. So what we do is, you were paying $90, I was paying $10. So we'll make it so that you're now going to be paying $81, and I'll now be paying $9. So you get a $9 discount, and I get a $1 discount. That makes sense. That's fair, right?
By the
No
math,
one
yeah.
would be going, well, Snowpilot's clearly ripping Sanguine off there. I mean, Snowpilot is getting $9 back, whereas Sanguine's getting $1. No, because we each get that 10% discount. Now, if we were calculating this the same way that they were calculating the tax benefit, the tax cut benefit, what would be said is, that is ridiculously unfair. Snowpilot is getting getting 9 times the tax cut that Sanguine is. He's getting 9 times the discount. How is that fair? Snowpilot's getting 9 times the discount that I am. That's outrageous. We should be getting an even discount. Except that's not how it fucking works, because we each got a 10% discount. So 10% versus 10%. It's the fucking same number now, isn't it, you numpty? But
when I would argue with people, it wasn't even so much that, is I could actually see the difference in my paychecks when that went in, and I am by no means in the 1%.
Yep.
I'm upper middle class.
Yep.
And it was resulting in roughly an extra $50 in my paycheck. I went,
yeah.
That's a dinner with the wife.
Yep.
That's, oh yeah, we can, get, a couple extra groceries this week, or, it's an extra, some extra money we can put towards one of the bills and knock it down faster.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I got it. And I even argued with my folks on this one, particularly my dad. I'm like, I got it.
Yep.
I'm seeing it.
Yep. And that was one of the things that they used to try to turn people against the tax cut that Trump put through. The other major thing that they did, also ridiculously fucking scumfuck about it, was they started saying, oh yeah, don't expect to get back as much money when it comes to your tax refund. Do you guys happen to know why people weren't getting back as much money when it came to their tax refund?
Less was being withheld from their paychecks.
Yep. Less was being withheld from their paychecks because the taxes went down, so less money was being withheld as well, because the amount being withheld is figured out based on the amount of tax that you have to pay. And if less is being withheld, you get less back. Especially if they withhold the right amount.
Yeah,
so,
but math is hard, Sanguine.
Yeah. And that was what they were relying on. They were relying on no one actually looking into how shit was figured out, and no one looking into what the numbers that they were saying actually meant. And that pissed me off, because people were being naive enough to believe that what they were being told was correct. And by the way, hello Chaos, how you doing?
Yeah,
So Sanguine, I don't think they were being naive. I don't think they were being naive at all. I think they were being grossly dishonest.
Of course they're being grossly dishonest.
They did not want to look at the numbers you're talking about. It's not that they couldn't get at their abacus. It's that it's all about revenge. It has nothing to do with fairness or anything else. So,
well,
sorry,
I would say there's a portion of the population that what you said is absolutely right for, and those are the ones that I am chastising when I say fuck the people that demand a punitive tax system.
Right. And the other people are just believing the line of bullshit.
Yep, I would say the vast majority were being naive because they were going, well, the news is telling me. Why would the news lie to me? And the news is lying to you for the same reason that anyone would lie to you. It benefited them.
Uh-huh.
Well,
the thing, and I don't know many of y'all's opinion on our favorite little beanie boy, Mr. Poole, but one thing he has said recently is absolutely true. And again, just talking to people around me. One political party wants you to be informed and make a decision based on what you've looked up for yourself. Mm-hmm. The other one wants you dumber than a box of rocks.
Yeah. And if you challenge them on it, they call you racist for it.
Well, you challenge them on anything, they call you racist for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way that it should work is, here's what I believe, here's the reason why I believe it, here's the things that I used in order to come to that conclusion.
Uh-huh.
And then you lay it out, you explain your thought process, and then other people are able to look at the same shit that you looked at and decide for themselves. And this is something that I've said before, and I cannot stress this enough, so I'm going to say it yet again. When it comes to when you hear new pieces of information, when you hear there's this latest and greatest study, or there's this new snippet from this or that, look at the information that agrees with you at least as thoroughly and as closely as you do the information that disagrees with you. And yeah, it goes back and forth, Eve. Whichever party is the one in power is the one that's trying to control what people look into and what they don't, and they'll pull the believe us. Well, why should we? Because you should. And the party that isn't in control will use the truth in order to inverse the situation, and then they'll start pulling the same bullshit. Which is why going a lifelong Republican or a lifelong Democrat is retarded. Mm-hmm. Your support should always be provisional. And like I said, everything that you hear, if it's for you, look into it at least as thoroughly as you do if it's something against what you say. And make sure that it is something that is valid. And people don't do this enough. And part of it is that a lot of people don't know how to read scientific papers or read academic papers in general. Like, one of the things, and I know I've mentioned this one a lot, because it absolutely fucking enraged me when I first saw this happen. And when I first actually looked at what the paper said and looked at the numbers it was using. Everyone's heard the FBI study that said that white nationalists were the greatest threat to America, right? Mm-hmm. It was blasted on every major news channel, in goddamn every newspaper, most of the magazines, everyone was talking about this FBI study that showed that white supremacists were the greatest threat to America. So I went, that sounds interesting. Let me look at the study. It took me some time because while everyone was talking about it, while people were citing it and talking about how important it was and how well done it was, they didn't bother to link it so that other people could see. So it took me a bit to track it down. I finally did. And I read through it. There were a number of major points that really stuck out to me. In that paper, it said that in the period of time that they were observing, that they used in order to determine that white supremacists were the greatest threat to America, Islamic terrorism was responsible for 1/3 of all terror attacks within the United States. And the measure that they were using in order to show that white supremacists were the most dangerous in America were the number of terror attacks. White supremacists were not responsible for 1/3 of terror attacks within the United States within that time period. They weren't responsible for more than 1/3 either. But even if you completely steel-manned their argument to an unreasonable degree, and you said, I'm not even going to argue against it, I'll say that the remaining 2/3 of terrorist activity within the United States was white supremacists. Are white supremacists the biggest threat? Are they the most dangerous group? Anyone care to guess what happened when you actually crunched the numbers on that? Even with saying something that the paper did not even try to say, that white supremacists were responsible for 2/3 of terrorist activity, while Islamic extremists were responsible for 1/3. Anyone care to guess what the results from crunching were?
No clue.
Accounting for population size as closely as I could, Islamic extremists were over 27 times more likely to commit an act of terror than white supremacists, using a ridiculously steel-manned version of their data. But like I said, in their data, at no point did they say that white supremacists were responsible for even 1/3 of terrorist activity. Their data said, out and out, without any sort of ambiguity, that 1/3 of all terrorist activity was responsible, or 1/3 of all terrorist activity was the product of Islamic extremism. They never said that 1/3 or more than 1/3 was responsible, or I keep on phrasing that sentence wrong, was the result of white supremacists or white extremist groups. So their own data said that their result was bullshit. And steel-manning their argument, giving them all the allowance that you possibly could, also said that their conclusion was absolute, unmitigated, unrepentant horseshit. And that infuriated me. Because
there was... Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
No, there was... I forget what newspaper it was in. Newspaper, air quotes. It was in lately. But after our president decided to go after ghost guns, I'll get into those in a minute. They published an article explaining why this was a problem, and I think it popped up on Crowder. And
California study?
Yeah, that one.
Which wasn't really a study?
Yeah. So for those of you who may have heard it, it's not 37% of firearms recovered at crime scenes are ghost guns. No. This is 37% of firearms recovered at crime scenes in California did not have serial numbers on them.
To include guns that did have serial numbers that were then filed.
Exactly. Allow me to introduce you to a little thing called a Dremel.
Yep.
Which, by the way, is also a federal crime.
Yep.
Already. 10 years in Leavenworth. Enjoy wearing orange. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go directly to Kansas.
I don't know the Ghostbusters theme song for that version.
Yeah. Well, because what he's talking about, and the way they keep talking about this, keep talking about kits and kits and kits. Okay. Oddly enough, a friend of mine at work actually bought himself an 80% lower. Mm-hmm. One of these paperweights, because when you buy it, that's all it is. It is a block of aluminum that is rough machined to a certain shape. and is incomplete. It is useless as a weapon unless you throw it at somebody.
Yep.
Therefore, it requires no serial number. That was, I think he paid $125 for an aluminum paperweight. He then had to go and buy a router, not insubstantial. There's about another $100 right there for a decent one, not going Harbor Freight. Probably another $30 to $40 for a couple of router bits that will cut metal, so not insubstantial. And then you have to buy a special jig.
Yep.
Which is another $300 usually. You'll find me somebody from MS-13 who is going to spend $600 to machine their own lower receiver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but when he's talking about kits, the conflation that I hear is home built. 95+% of home built ARs in the United States have serial numbers. Because you buy the lower from Spike's Tactical, PSA, whoever. You buy the rest of the parts, you assemble it yourself. It's got a serial number, which means there's a 4473 involved. Yep. And
most people don't know this.
To respond to something that Chaos said, I mean that people we put in office, they aren't really different people. They have the same interests, staying in power. They don't even go about it in different ways a lot of the time. Yeah, it's the idea that once you get power, the main thing that you want is more power.
Or at the very least, not to lose that which you have.
Yep. Keeping power. You want more power and you want to keep power. And when it comes to all this bullshit, it just pisses me off because they will have articles that, or not articles, but studies and papers that will, in the data for the study and for the paper, will disprove what they then say is the conclusion of the paper, knowing that people will run with the conclusion that they say they have.
Also, it's never than your average news article. People read the headline, maybe the first paragraph, and they're done.
Yep. And
look at the New York Times article about Trump's taxes. You read more than halfway down. No, he actually he paid a couple $1 million that he didn't have to.
Yep. And this is true with fucking near everything, unfortunately. Which is why actually go and look at the information. If it agrees with you, look at it at least as thoroughly as that which disagrees with you. Because you will find this constantly. There will be articles that and papers and what have you, studies that will be on this side or that side, and you'll actually look into the methodology, look into the data, and you'll be going, it don't work that way. And you'll then know not to use that in an argument, that it is not valid. And you'll be able to argue against it when you hear it. Because here's the thing. People can benefit from bullshit in the short term, but basing your beliefs on bullshit, arguing with nonsensical things, or arguing for nonsensical things that aren't even backed up by what you're citing, does not benefit you in the long run. It makes it so that your position is infinitely more easy to attack than if you had actually gone through the work and sorted through the material and gone, okay, this is a good argument, this is a bad argument, this is something that I can actually demonstrate, this is something that it's actually easier to demonstrate the opposite. Look at the information that you're given. Figure out if it's saying what it thinks it's saying. And you see this constantly. Because
that involves work.
Yep, it does. It involves work, and it involves a sense of intellectual pride. Because it demands that you kind of have that feel of, I would rather be as accurate as I can than to have things that say I'm correct in how I feel. And a lot of people, it sucks when you find out that you're wrong. If you've spent time pushing for something, it can really suck. Because you suddenly realize, oh, I've been pushing for this, and actually that wasn't good. Fuck. Whereas if you actually go through the process, figure out what is and what isn't, you'll end up having to do that less. You might do it a shit ton in the beginning, but there is no shame in finding out that you were wrong. There should absolutely be shame in insisting you are right despite all the information that you have available. There should also be shame in refusing to check if you're right. Refusing to even allow the thought to enter your mind that you might be wrong. That should be something that is viewed as shameful. Being wrong, it's fucking normal. Because it happens all the time. You will make a decision based on the information that you have available. And then you'll find another piece of information that actually manages to disprove one of the bits that you had before, or manages to completely change the framework. So, well, yep, all the information that you had before was as accurate as that information could be. This new bit of information changes how all of that's interpreted. That happens all the time. Fuck, it happens in scientific theories all the fucking time. The Newtonian theory of gravity works in a fuck ton of different situations. And it is extremely useful. Is it correct? Is it the most accurate? No. The relativistic theory was more accurate. But to the extent that the Newtonian theory was accurate, it functioned effectively as a simplified Einstein. A simplified relativistic. And is the relativistic theory of gravity, is the Einstein theory of gravity 100% accurate? No. There's flaws in that. So they're working on additional models. It's just part of life and just part of gaining information that you will have to reevaluate what you believe. You'll have to reevaluate what you feel like you know. Because what you know might not be correct. And there's no shame in admitting, I went with the information that I had, and I didn't have all the information. I was wrong.
Makes me want to go eat some steakums.
God. You saw Polly's rant today.
No, we were talking about that on Minions last night.
Really?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, Polly.
No, the whole thing between
today.
Steakum, the whole thing between Steakums and Neil deGrasse Tyson is beautiful.
Yeah.
Because basically, Neil deGrasse Tyson's doing that. I'm a science communicator, and what is he trying? He's basically saying, what is it he's trying to say?
Science can
No, I don't think that's what his intent was. I mean, being fair, in a sense, they're kind of talking past each other. He's just trying to get people sort of to pay attention to science, but the way he said it, if you look at the words coming out of his mouth, it's like, that is not the way it works, dude. I understand the message you're trying to send out, but the Steakums guys are actually calling you on it. You were just really sloppy in your attempt to make a pop science sort of presentation. You know, it's because the words coming out of his mouth are literally wrong, right? I mean, there's no argument about that. But I don't think he was trying to have a philosophy of science discussion. He was just telling people, you know, hey, pay attention to the damn science.
Mm-hmm.
I feel I'm not communicating this point clearly. I'm sorry.
No, it made sense to me. It was that you can be trying to communicate a valid and positive message and phrase it wrong and make it sound like you're overstepping. And that happens. It's fairly easy. It happens a fuck ton of the time. How often have you had a friend or family member going through something and you tried to say something in order to help them out and it blows up spectacularly? Because what you said and what you meant by what you said don't necessarily have a 100% overlap.
Here's something fun. Oh, I'm stupid. Don't make it a background, Harry. That was dumb. I'm not competent. I'm not competent enough to do this stuff, apparently. Okay, let's try this again. Let's get this right this time. There we go.
Nice.
That's one of my favorites.
But yeah, science communication. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say that to hear Neil deGrasse Tyson so desperately wants to be Carl Sagan, he can taste it. You know, if you hear him talk about his early life, about going to Cornell and his whole little pilgrimage there to meet Sagan when he was a kid, it's like, man, I feel like I'm intruding on some guy's religious pilgrimage. It was really weird. And then him taking over the Cosmos reboot thing. And I like Neil deGrasse Tyson, but you're like your own dude and you're not Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan is Carl Sagan and you're Neil deGrasse Tyson. And, you know, that's okay.
Yeah, we don't need another Carl Sagan, but we need someone who could do what Carl Sagan did.
I know who we don't need. We don't need Bill Nye, the Bachelor of Science guy.
Bachelor of Engineering.
Yeah, engineering.
Which is an insult to me, by the way.
And
I don't need him. No, but you're not claiming to be the world's expert on all things scientific. That's the thing. He's making claims of his expertise that's way beyond, you know, what he can sort of back up. And when you hear him talk about biology and genetics and stuff, it's pretty obvious. He's just a popular science mouthpiece.
yeah, we need more people that decide to take on the role of communicators need a memento mori. And they need a memento mori that they fucking trust. Because
you know, sorry, go ahead.
So many of them.
I was just going to say the young Turks had, you know, like Cara Santa Maria, right? I think that was sort of what passed for their science communicator a few years ago. I don't really pay attention to them now. And she wasn't terrible, you know, in sort of a Wired magazine kind of reporter sort of thing. But it used to be that you would actually have like real people that would go on the mainstream news and they'd get in, you know, real people who were like top of their field who would communicate. Not just somebody who studied journalism and thought science was cool. You know, that's kind of the difference.
And I've talked about that if I had one thing that I could do in order to change how science and scientific journals are done, that I would have the journal of failure. The second thing that I would do if I had the ability to make a second sweeping change is I would have it so that every major university would have, on a rotating basis, the lay summary journal where you would have the top people that you have at your university summarize the material in that field for the layman.
I mean, let the plebs understand it. Hang on.
Yeah, make it so that people can understand it, and have it so that it is the year in review of what was done as far as research and what it means, but for people to understand it, written by people that actually know what it means.
Well,
Because
even-
so often... Oh, God.
I was just going to say, even for people in different disciplines, you know, PhDs in different disciplines, it's very difficult to understand things outside of your own field.
Yep.
So if you subscribe to science, which I do because I'm boring, which is you join AAAS, American Association for the Advancement of Science, and you get a subscription to this fine magazine, and it's a great magazine, and it has all kinds of stuff, but they are really stretching the limits at which somebody outside of a particular field can get a useful amount of knowledge about what's really going on at the forefront of another field.
Yep.
To take it down to the layman's level, you almost have to abstract away most of the useful information, which isn't always true, but it's like you're really just sort of communicating through analogy at that point. You're saying it's kind of like this thing. Gravity's kind of like if you have a shitty mattress and you roll a bowling ball on it. You know, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And then
but
you throw a marble at it.
those things are important. Being able to
Sure.
get the public to understand why a bit of research is important. Like, everyone here has heard me absolutely geek out about, for instance, IPSCs. And rave about how fucking awesome IPSCs are. Because I legitimately want people to understand what IPSCs are. And I want them to also be excited about IPSCs. Because the things that they can do in the future with IPSCs are going to be amazing. For those who don't know what IPSC stands for, induced pluripotent stem cells. They're somatic cells that are then turned into stem cells. So they're your cells taken from you, just one cell, and suddenly we have a pluripotent stem cell, which means that we can turn that one cell into a mass of different cells, and we can make any type of cell within your body using that mass of cells. Which allows us to do cool shit in the future. That will allow us, eventually, everyone that needs a heart transplant, down the line, we'll probably take a cheek swab from you and then call you back when your heart's ready. And we will stick your heart genetically identical to you, because it is from your cell line, into you. So Graph v host, yeah, doesn't really happen.
Yeah, we just need to keep that science away from the weirdos who'll use it to make like tentacle porn with penises or something.
I don't even really give a shit if the weirdos get access to it.
Mhm.
Oh dear.
The weird fetish shit, so what? We're going to have weird fetish shit. We're humans. We deal with weird fetish shit at every fucking point of our existence. Anyone that thinks that these fetishes are brand new, son of a bitch, there's woodblock carvings of octopi fucking women from the goddamn, like, 1000s. We have
Oh, sorry, that's funny.
goddamn letters from which classical artist was it that was writing his cousin about how much he wanted to shit on her?
Oh, God, what was it? The guy who wrote Ulysses.
James Joyce's
Joyce.
Ulysses.
I think, what is it? James Joyce's letters to his wife are quite a thing.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was Mozart or one of the others. Like I said, we have letters that are between him and I think it was his cousin that are of a very, very creepy scatological nature. And shit, there's graffiti from World War II on goddamn German fortifications on the beaches of Normandy that are effectively horses with massive cocks fucking people.
Okay, here you go, chat. Here you go.
There's always going to be weird sexual shit. That's just part of being human. I don't care that there's going to be weird sexual shit in the future with technology that we develop, as long as the people involved are consenting, so be it. I don't give a shit. You're adults, you're consenting, fuck it, why should I care? And the things that we will be able to do with the tech far outstrip any sort of, oh, that's kind of creepy. You want to make it so that you have 3 dicks of varying sizes that all secrete different liquids? That's weird, but I don't care. You do you. We just made a heart for fucking 90-year-old Bob that his heart was failing, and yeah, he just got a new heart. It's his own heart. Just a younger his own heart without any of the damage that he had. And we just cured fucking diabetes entirely. Not just in one person. Entirely got rid of diabetes. That's far more worthwhile than, yeah, but someone might do weird shit like they ejaculate spider silk. Who the fuck cares if they ejaculate spider silk as long as they let the person know that they're going to come spider silk into them?
And that's a sticky situation.
Oh,
Yeah.
Corner with you.
Just try.
We need people that are excited and fascinated and actually understand the science to communicate what can happen with the science. Which is why communication is always going to be important, because there's a lot of bits of research that a layperson probably will go, that just sounds fucking weird. Why are we spending money on that? Whereas someone who actually knows is able to go, the reason why we're spending money on that is because all this cool shit that we'll get from it if it works. I mean, holy fuck, don't you want to be able to live to 300 years old because we can swap out all your organs as they start failing? Yeah. Fuck yeah. Sounds awesome. That's why we need people that are actually interested, that are actually passionate about what they're talking about, to be communicators. That's what we need in classrooms. Rather than people that are trained in how to teach. We need people that are fascinated about the subject and then trained how to teach, rather than just people that, okay, you want to be a teacher? You're going to teach 4th grade science, but I don't like science. Well, you're teaching 4th grade science if you want a job. Because the people that don't want to teach a subject and are assigned that subject, those are the miserable teachers that make you bored. And it's the same thing when it comes to communicators. The communicators that aren't interested in the subject will make it tremendously dull. The communicators that don't understand the subject, they will get a fuck ton wrong. So the least dangerous communicators, there's 2 categories of communicators that are the least dangerous. And those are the ones that hands down, the least dangerous and most beneficial, excited and knowledgeable communicators. Best type of communicator. The probably least dangerous, just because of how fucking lazy they are the completely dispassionate and uninformed. They don't get out there and start talking enough to really be an issue. The ones that are the most dangerous, the uninformed and passionate. Because those will be the ones that will make shit into what it absolutely isn't. You need people that actually know what the fuck they're talking about and are excited about what they're talking about to talk about it. Because there's a bunch of people that could explain what IPSCs do, and they could explain it in a way that is accurate, but it's boring. There's a bunch of people that can explain in a way that's accurate and exciting. There's a bunch of people that can explain in a way that is entirely inaccurate and kind of exciting. And those people are the ones that are dangerous, because those people are the ones that will be going, oh yeah, we'll be able to make it so that you grow like 4 arms and you'll be able to piss radiation. And what? Oh yeah, the reason why they want to be able to do this bit of research is so that they'll be able to sterilize everyone, and that'll solve overpopulation. What? Shut the no! What?
Yeah, they never want to start with themselves either when they start that kind of shit, you know?
No.
They always want to start with everybody else's kids.
Well,
Yeah.
they also think that they won't be affected even down the line. It's not that they won't be the first in line. They won't even be in line. Like, no. You'll be in line.
Because they're one of the noblesse.
Mm-hmm.
And the noblesse oblige are not obliged to follow the rules that they set for everyone else.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that pisses me off. And you see this constantly. And science communication, unfortunately, as much as I love science and as much as I find science fascinating, science communication is absolutely plagued by shitty communicators. Look no further than some of the most popular pages to hear about science. Fuck me if I fucking love science is not one of the worst pieces of shit on the internet.
Possibly.
They don't
There's
understand
a lot
a
of not good
goddamn
stuff.
thing.
Veritasium is not good.
Yeah.
There's a few others that are not good, but pretty much, you know, if you don't want them being as to science as BuzzFeed is to food, you know, there's just too much P.T. Barnum and not enough Carl Sagan.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's not good. They're trying to make it appealing. So somebody like again, Bill Nye, it's not his lack of enthusiasm. It's not his. You know, he's not lacking for enthusiasm. He's lacking for honesty, because he's basically just a shill for politically correct stuff now. Because he's had to distance himself from all the stuff that he actually did a credible job on back 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's all about the money.
Though
So
I
he's
still
kind
say
of done a Fauci to popular science is basically what he's done.
absolutely, and I still say what should happen due to that is we need to track down Beekman and get him to come back on air. We need Beekman's world back.
What you need is a new Mr. Wizard.
Yeah.
We need a new Mr. Wizard. We need someone as knowledgeable and as passionate as Sagan without them trying to be Sagan. We need Feynman without them trying to be Feynman.
I'd settle for Dr. Bunsen Honeydew at this point.
But only if he has Beaker.
Well, yes.
But like I said, Beakman's World. Did any of you watch Beakman's World?
I
Loved
did
it.
not.
Yeah. Beakman's World was a competitor of Bill Nye. And it was awesome. It never took itself seriously, but it explained what it was doing. And it had a bunch of things that they would talk about that were bigger ideas. And then they also had a bunch of just kind of stupid, silly, try at home shit that they would end up explaining through how it worked and why it worked and how to do it. So it was something that made science fun, which Bill Nye, early Bill Nye the Science Guy, before they tried to resurrect it, did the same thing. It made science interesting. It made science fun. It made it so that children would actually watch Bill Nye the Science Guy and enjoy it. And because they enjoyed watching it, because they watched it, they would actually have a positive opinion of science, and then schools would try to beat that out of them, and then they would see another episode of Bill Nye or Beakman's World. Or we need that degree of science communicators again that we had in the past, and we need them to be honest, excited, and informed. All three of those. We need all three of those.
Well, one of the other things that has happened recently is, I'll say recently, look at networks like History Channel, Discovery Channel, TLC.
You mean
They used to be
the aliens and
storage
wars and
it's like
Pawn Stars channels?
Yeah. When you start getting into the reality TV world, like, okay, not gonna lie, Origin Fire, fucking amazing series. You get a crash course in metallurgy, and it's amazing. It's absolutely. If Forged in Fire had been on when I was in college, going through my material science courses, so many more things would make sense. Like, oh, that's what they're doing, because you actually see it in practice. You can put two and two together. Those kind of shows, great. But Storage Wars, for fuck's sake, what the hell is that doing on TLC?
Yeah.
I remember when I was growing up, TLC meant Professor Iris.
Yeah,
here's Bill Nye for 3-year-olds.
Yeah. One of the shows that I absolutely loved, that I think it was it on PBS? Might have been on PBS, was Inspector Gadget's Field Trips. Did anyone else watch Inspector Gadget's Field Trips?
No.
So, everyone, of course, knows who Inspector Gadget is, right?
Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. But yeah, I do.
That was Ghostbusters that you just started up.
I know. Some of the jingles back in the day were very similar in my head.
Inspector Gadget.
Exactly. Inspector Gadget's Field Trips was Inspector Gadget as a tour guide. So it would be the voice of Inspector Gadget doing all the voiceover for effectively just a standard travel show with weird Inspector Gadget jokes and Inspector Gadget being animated on top of the scenes from these locations. And he would talk about the history and things that you can see and interesting bits, because it was, hey, kids like Inspector Gadget, let's make them more interested in learning about different places around the world. Stick Inspector Gadget in there. And it worked.
Even a little 5-minute segment at the end of an Inspector Gadget cartoon. Holy hell.
Yep.
Yeah, see, Inspector Gadget up here was always followed up by Boy and Cole.
Rocky and Bullwinkle? Hell yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, Moose and Squirrel.
Yes. I think
But-
that's the wrong
but-
hat, Rocky.
Natasha was pretty hot.
Nice. And never forget Fearless Leader.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, we used to have these channels actually communicating the information that they were supposed to communicate. The History Channel was history. 24/7 effectively. Sure, for a good chunk of time, it got stuck being the Hitler Channel
Yeah.
because all the history that it did was World War II, but that was at least still history. They just needed to broaden it out a bit. Stop just doing World War II documentaries and add in we'll do World War II, we'll do the Dark Ages, the Renaissance, go back to ancient times. Do shit like that. Have it be balanced out between all the different...
With Discovery Channel, you had Shark Week that didn't involve celebrities. Yes, Mr. Yes, absolutely. Modern Marvels. Abso-fucking-lutely.
Yep.
Great series. One of my all-time favorites, Tales of the Gun.
Mm-hmm.
That opening segment that started every single episode. Holy shit, if more people read that.
Yeah.
But it was, yes, Men Who Built America also. They occasionally come up with these gems. But then it's Ancient Aliens. I'm like, the fuck? What?
Though I do have to say, the very first episode of Ancient Aliens is the most amazing Fry the Coke that I've ever seen. Has anyone ever watched the first episode of Ancient Aliens?
I have not.
Okay, so you should, but I'm going to explain what the first episode of Ancient Aliens was, because it was amazing. The very first episode of Ancient Aliens, the first half of the episode, was just really interesting. Hey, humans might have had more tech than we thought they did. Because they started with, in Egypt. Most of what ended up in the tombs were miniaturized versions of things that Egyptians actually had. And in one of the tombs, they found this carved bird thing, but its wings weren't really bird-shaped wings. Its wings were more airplane-shaped wings. And it had a interesting-looking tail, but it looked like something might have been broken off of the top of the tail. So they started talking about how, what if ancient Egyptians actually had a sort of glider that they were able to make? And this is a representation of one of those gliders. Then they talked about the aerodynamic nature of this carved bird and how if they made an exact replica of the bird and then just added one little bit on the tail, on the area where it looks like something was broken off of, it's actually a rather effective glider. That it works. They stuck it in a wind tunnel. They showed how the air moved around it versus a little glider that can be made nowadays that's modeled after a plane. And they showed how the movement of the air around this bird was almost identical to the movement of the air around the modern day miniature scale glider. Mm-hmm. So the first half of the episode was all Egyptians might have actually been able to make gliders. And of course they would have modeled their gliders after birds, because what else are you going to model something that flies off of? You see birds flying, so yeah, you make something that flies, give it a bird motif. Makes sense. kind of cool. And then they went on to other bits of like, and it might not have just been the Egyptians that had shit like this. Because if you look at these extremely traditional works of jewelry and toys from this area of South America, they have something that's very similar, only it's more insect looking. But you do the same thing, you put it in the wind tunnel, and yeah, it's a fucking glider. So this might have been, again, something that they figured out how to make these gliders. And then they made miniature versions for the tombs in Egypt, and they made miniature versions that started out probably as toys, and then became more ornate as people of higher status got these. You wouldn't just make it out of wood for someone that was wealthy. You'd make it out of some sort of precious material. And then it became a show of status, how ornate it was, which is how it became jewelry. So isn't it kind of cool that humans might have had a glider well before we ever considered humans had the ability to get off the ground? Isn't that fascinating? And that was the entire first half. It was just, there's some things that kind of hint that we might have had the ability to glide, and we might have had some additional interesting little tech developments that we didn't realize that we had, like the Baghdad battery. They mentioned that in the episode as well, which is able to generate small amounts of electricity. And isn't that really fucking cool? That was the first half of the episode. Then it goes commercial break, and then it comes back, and it's talking about the Israelites wandering 40 years in the desert in the Old Testament during Exodus. Everyone remembers that story, right? And they read the specific section that mentions manna falling from the heavens. And then they read this one section of one of the more esoteric and interesting Jewish religious works. It's effectively one of the mysteries that they have. And they read that. And then they went, it's clear that from these passages, food was falling from the sky, and the only way that this could happen is that aliens made a device known as the manna machine, which mixed up this one specific type of algae and then seeded the clouds with that algae, and it's that algae that they were calling manna. So this is what the device would have looked like that the aliens made in order to rain this one type of algae upon the lost Israelites in the desert so that they could continue eating. And of course the Israelites assumed that these aliens were gods and godlike beings. They're the angels from the Old Testament and from the Bible are these aliens. So it's obvious that these aliens existed. It's obvious that this machine existed. Where might have this machine ended up? And you're going, the fuck? You leave off with, it's cool, humans might have had gliders, and you come back with manna machine. The aliens mixed up a slurry of this one type of algae and then seeded the clouds with it, and the Jews sucked up this algae because that's what we currently do in order to feed astronauts. Makes sense. Beautiful. No, what the how did you come back from a commercial break? And
I always assumed it would be more like cotton candy, honestly. Algae from the sky doesn't sound good.
Yeah. And like I said, it was literally a commercial break separated this is kind of an interesting premise. And then immediately, like, I don't know if they just did like 12 tabs of disco biscuits and then some fucking ayahuasca and some other goddamn hallucinogens, pop some mushrooms, and then like boofed some other psychedelic, and then decided that they would do the rest of the show.
I just have to throw this out there because I think I have a sense of humor. But if the snow that you're eating tastes like cotton candy, that's probably the drugs talking.
Yeah, it's that show, like I said, the greatest example of jumping the shark. And it is, or not even just jumping the shark. It is
Ain't even gotten to the shark yet.
It is straight up frying the Coke. And yeah, that I remember watching that first episode. I saw it after it ended up on Netflix, and just as shits and giggles when I was in college, a couple other science majors and I decided, fuck it, let's watch some Ancient Aliens and have a giggle. And the first half we're going, this is actually interesting. And then Man a Machine. The Jews were eating astronaut food algae that was pumped into the clouds by aliens. And this is a fact. The fuck?
Yeah.
Or it could just be that at some point as they're wandering the desert, they happen to come across, snow.
Yeah, and
It's just snow.
it could also be just that, like most stories, that over time, as they were told again and again and again and again, they became ever more fantastical.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's not like, the Israelites had time to sit down and, write down detailed scientific observations of what they were seeing as they were traipsing through what is now Lebanon and Syria.
yeah,
They had other things on their mind, like not dying.
yeah, and it just drives me crazy that channels that used to have fascinating things on them, channels that used to have legitimately educational things, descended to the madness that they are. I mean, even Discovery Science has devolved into a shit ton of pseudoscience. How the fuck do you have a channel named Discovery Science, and then you have shows talking about the innate intelligence of black holes?
There was a
What?
show on Disney Channel when I was real little, like 2-3 years old. I want to say it was like Shake, Rattle, and Roll or something like that. But it was just a kid, living in his room was in a basement, and he had a robot that he built himself, some boy genius, whatever. And they had a fucking time machine through which they would bring, towards the end of the show, some kind of historical figure. So in going through this weird slice of life thing that he's dealing with on any given day, his robot dude brings back, the episode I remember most vividly, fucking Blackbeard. Because he had to write a report on something from the 1700s. I'm like, that's cool. It's Blackbeard.
So it's little kids' slice of life, Bill and Ted.
Yeah.
Nice.
But it was live action. It was like, this is cool.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And here's, 3-4 years old, I'm like, wow, Blackbeard's real name was Edward Teach. This is probably the first time I've ever fucking even heard of Blackbeard. Like, wow, his name was probably Edward Teach, as far as anybody can tell. Like, okay.
And there were other interesting shows that got children into different topics that, I mean, say what you will. Some people love it. Some people are going, it was kind of crap. Wishbone.
Oh yeah, I remember it.
Wishbone got people into literature and gave people the at least general connection to what a story was, so that when they heard someone reference it, they would be able to go, oh yeah, that's what that is.
Wishbone's the little beagle pup, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
That would end up living through various stories.
Mm-hmm.
And that was fantastic. It got people interested in literature.
Uh-huh.
And you would have the different shows that it was time travel, and they would go back and they'd see this event or that event, and it would get people interested in history and give them at least some frame of reference when it was well done. We used to have really...
They do that now, and then they throw in woke shit.
Yeah, if they tried to do it now, they would go back to goddamn 4th century England, and all the higher ups would be black African.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd be going, the fuck? If you want to do stories that involve certain people, as I mentioned, I think it was just last week, wasn't it, Harry, that we had the Russian sniper conversation? Yeah, we were talking about World War II and how in different depictions of World War II and different games that are supposed to take place in World War II, people are now trying to add women as frontline troops.
Ludmila Pavlichenko.
Americans and the Brits. And I was going, no, if you want to have a story about a badass woman during World War II, female Russian snipers.
Yep. Ludmila Pavlichenko.
Yep. You can do that.
She had a higher kill count than Vasily Zaitsev himself.
Yep. The main thing was that Vasily Zaitsev killed more snipers and more officers.
Mm-hmm.
So she killed more in general. He had more targeted kills.
Mm-hmm.
And with both of them, I said it last week as well. When it came to World War II, the Americans, the Russians, the English, and the French had an entirely different approach than the Germans did. And we had the better approach when it came to this, because the Germans had a habit of, we need a sniper on the front. There is our best sniper. Send our best sniper to the front. And they would send their sniper to the front, and he would kick ass for a period of time. And then he'd get shot. We need our best sniper. Send our second best sniper. He's now our first best sniper. And he would go there and he would do a good job. And he'd get shot. Third best sniper? Third best sniper would go and he'd do an okay job. Get shot. And as the war went on, they got farther down the ranking of what sniper they had left. The Russians did the... We need snipers. Who's our best sniper? Well, we have this one insane son of a bitch in Stalingrad. Get him back. Get him out of conflict. Get him off the front. Get him back here. We'll give him 2,000 students. So they got Vasily Zaitsev back. They gave him 2,000 students. He trained up 2,000 students, and then they went, okay, let's send him and all of his students to the front, see who's the best. So they sent them all to the front. The one that was the best, they went, okay, pull him back. He now gets 2,000 snipers. Or her back. She now gets 2,000 snipers. And they trained up snipers by looking for who's the best sniper and pulling them back and having them train. Americans did the same thing. Where's our best X, Y, or Z? Well, it's Bob over there. Get Bob off the front. Get his ass back here. We're going to have him train people to do it. We want him to train people to do it as well as he did. And we would do that. So what happened was that throughout the war, German quality of troops and German quality of skilled troops was on a constant decline because their best and bravest and brightest kept on getting absolutely butchered by just being sent out to the front again and again and again and again, which is a really good thing for us, a really shit strategy for them. Whereas when it came to the Americans, the English, and the Russians, as the war went on, the quality and the training kept on going up rather than down. So, as the war went on, the English were kicking more ass. As the war went on, the Russians were kicking more ass. As the war went on, the Americans were kicking more ass. And we did that while the Germans were becoming ever more shit. So it became easier and easier for them to kick ass while they were also getting better and better. That's a really bad way to wage a war.
Well, if you want, back to your original point, right? You want another example instead of shoehorning some arbitrary character in for the sake of, insert trend here. Here's an idea. Next time you do a World War, next time Battlefield does a World War II edition, allow me to introduce you to Night Bomber Regiment 588.
Yep.
When you are so badass flying around in a biplane that makes a fairy swordfish look state of the art in 1940, and your mortal enemy actually gives you a nickname because they're terrified of you, you're doing something right.
Mm-hmm. It's like how the Marines became known as Devil Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to have a story about a black man in Europe, there's actually a way to do that. A black man in Europe in the Middle Ages? Yeah, there's a way of doing that.
Mm-hmm.
A really easy way is have it be in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Set it in Spain. Now suddenly you have Moors. And the Moors were a interbreeding of Middle Eastern and black. You can tell a bunch of stories about the Moors. There's a bunch of stories about them. You can tell stories about the Moors versus the Spanish. You can tell stories about the Moors in their conquest of Spain. You can have a bunch of different things set with that. And you have your black character in the Middle Ages in Europe. And it becomes interesting. You want to have a story about Asian men and women in Europe during the Dark Ages? Have you ever heard of the Golden Horde?
Mm-hmm.
You can do it. You can find people and you can find ways of getting certain groups into a story that makes narrative sense.
There are so many stories to tell.
Yep.
But it's almost getting lazy.
Yeah. When you go, okay, we want to tell a story about Anne Boleyn, but we're going to cast Anne Boleyn as a black woman. You mean the almost ghostly white woman is now black? I can't wait for your Shaka Zulu where it's a goddamn albino man is going to play Shaka Zulu.
Oh, that'll never happen. What actually? Oh God, fuck! I forget the name of the guy's channel, and it's going to come to me later. But History Buffs, when he did his review of Zulu, Battle of Rorke's Drift.
Yep.
Yeah, that movie remains one of the best anti-war war movies, because it kind of was. That was the thing at the time. And it is still respected. It's, I think, couple of years ago, somebody tried claiming that Zulu was racist. I'm like, do you not understand the absolute terror and awe that the Zulus were regarded with?
Yeah, and I think
Why the British?
I think someone tried to say that it was racist, and then the Zulus told
were
them
like,
to shut the
"Fuck you."
fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, what the fuck, guys? Like,
there's a bunch of different stories throughout history that you can tell that get a interesting and diverse cast without it being just naked. Yeah, we don't give a shit about historical accuracy. We don't give a shit about if you can actually buy the story that we're trying to tell you. We're just going to stick this character in. I mean, shit, if you want to have a black character in a story about the Roman Empire, fine. Say again?
Oh, I said they could do that easy.
Yeah. Find a bit of Roman history that you want to look at that has any of the African legions, because there were a bunch.
Uh-huh.
You want to have a story of North Africans fighting against Rome? That's really fucking easy. Ever heard of a man, Hannibal? Because Hannibal Barca.
Uh-huh.
Guess where he was from?
What we now call Algeria.
You want to have you can do this with a shit ton of different things. You can do it throughout most of the history. All you need to do is give them a valid reason. You want to have a black man in medieval England? You can't actually get that. Trade was a thing. There were a bunch of really far-stretching trade routes and interesting groups that would take on people. I mean, fuck, the goddamn Vikings traded to fucking India. There's a reason why the Vikings had crucible steel swords. Not all of them were crucible steel, but some of them
really
were.
Good ones.
Yeah. The true Ulfbert swords, those were crucible steel.
Uh-huh. Look at what if you actually go and examine Viking armor, pay close attention to their helmets.
Yep.
They're shockingly Turkish.
Mm-hmm.
Like yes, there is convergent evolution in military technology. However,
you can very easily tell stories that have interesting characters. Just give them a fucking reason. Don't just stick them in and go, oh, you have a problem with this black man in medieval England? Well, because you aren't identifying him as a Moor or a traitor from this group or that group or someone who was taken as a captive by this group and then ended up becoming a free man due to X, Y, and Z. Yeah, I kind of have a problem with the fact that you're just saying, no, he grew up in the town just 5 miles down the road.
Fuck, the latest Robin Hood movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Go back. I know it's not a lot of people's favorite, but Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
Yep.
Yes, there is a black character. He's a fucking Moor.
Yep. They had
and
him
his
as
name
a Moor.
isn't Little John.
Yeah.
Go to the most recent one. Hang on a second. Guy by the name of John Little is. You want to run this one by me again, Sparky?
Yep. You can
do it. Just be honest with it.
It's not like we don't have a version where they included him more. It's not like the one with Kevin Costner.
Yeah.
Not a fucking more. He was a main character. He was awesome.
Yeah. And not for nothing, but no Englishman is going to know anything about Arab-style recurve bows.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to happen.
Unless there's one way that they could get that information, and that is if you have it in their character that they were an archer in one of the Crusade attempts.
But even then, right? If you look at the story of John Little, he's a big man. He would not have been an archer.
Well, longbowman he could have been. Longbowman.
Well, true. As a yeoman, he would have been required to be. But he.
And also, we have records of longbowmen effectively being described as goddamn monstrous.
Well, they had to be.
Yep.
Your English warbow had well north of 100-pound draw.
Yeah. Well, the heaviest pulls from the Queen Mary find? It is the Queen Mary, right?
The Mary Rose?
Yes. The Mary Rose. Was 200 something pounds? 220, 240 or something like that?
Yeah, something obscene.
You can absolutely get those characters. And longbowmen were recorded as monstrous. I mean, shit. We found skeletons of longbowmen in the Mary Rose that originally they were viewed as deformed when we first found them. And then upon further inspection, we found out, oh no, it's just ridiculous training. Because, yeah, the training and use of that grade of longbow does interestingly reshape your skeleton.
Yeah, it fucks up your shoulders.
It's not so much fucking up your shoulders as just
restructuring
them.
Yeah. But even then, the kind of bow that you see in the latest Robin Hood movie is a cavalry bow.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It is short. It is meant to be swung around as you're galloping at full speed on the back of a horse.
Yep.
They're easy to pull.
Yep. Because
I like them. They're easy to pull.
They're easy to pull. They're typically in the 40 to 50 pound range at the most. They're very lightweight. They're very handy. And they didn't have to have that ridiculously heavy draw that a longbow has because you're not lobbing arrows at well beyond 100 yards. You're up close and personal, galloping past somebody. One arrow out the front, turn around. One arrow out the back, wheel around, do it again.
It's supposed to be like a drive-by shooting.
Yep.
Effectively. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're harassing bows.
Yeah, it's kind of like they took ideas from the Mongols and like, we're gonna give this to the British. It's not really.
No.
Not really how that worked.
No.
Like I said, the way that you could actually have it be explained in character, and people would go, okay.
Well, it's close enough.
Is if it would have been made like a point that, yeah, he was part of, because they always said it during the reign of King John now, that he was one of the longbowmen that accompanied Richard during the Crusades. Then, yeah, he might have knowledge of the enemy's bows.
Yeah.
And that would give him a reason. And that would make the story a hell of a lot better than, have you ever left this small town? No. Why the fuck do you have a goddamn Eastern bow? I don't know.
I still find it amazing that they found his closest relative in Canada when they found his body and had to seek out someone for genetics.
Do you mean Richard rather?
Yeah, Richard the Third.
Richard the
Richard the Lionheart.
Yeah.
Or
Not
Richard
Richard the Lionheart. She's talking the
other one, the one that
Yeah.
they don't talk about as much because propaganda, possibly propaganda. And he might have killed 2 kids. I don't know
Richard
that
the-
as a fact, but he might have killed 2 kids.
The one they found them in the parking lot?
Yep.
Yeah.
Richard the Third.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I was kind of like, I knew he wasn't the right one, but it was just in my head because you said Richard. And I was like, still weird.
And from what I heard most recently about that is the idea that he killed his 2, what was it, nephews,
Yeah, the 2 princes.
is probably not accurate.
It's always been speculated it could have been propaganda.
Yeah, that's what I think is the now prominent theory, is that it was most likely propaganda.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where because there's no trace of what happened to them, like it's really, for all you know, they got sick. For all you know, they shipped them out. We're like, yeah. Still one of those mysteries that's creepy.
Because we mentioned the kings of England, do you guys happen to know the only 2 kings that have never and most likely will never have a second of their name? Because there's only 2 that effectively there is a royal embargo on the name.
It's not off
no
the top
clue.
of my head. It's not-
Robert.
It's not Robert.
It's not Robert?
Nope. I'll give you a
Well,
hint.
we already
I
had
said
2
one of them
Ethelreds,
already.
so
Yeah, I said one of the names already.
Oh.
So I'm guessing Richard something.
Yeah, we already had.
Three.
We're up to 3.
It's one of them's John.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
John will never have a second of his name. And let's see if chat knows. Chat, do you happen to know the other king that will never have a second of his name? Because there's 2 that, like I said, it is effectively written in stone that no, you aren't allowed to name your family member either of these 2 names if you're royal family. And it doesn't look like anyone's chomping at the bit to say. The other one is Stephen.
Oh.
Oh, and Charming Cthulhu did get it because,
Just in time. Yep.
yep, it would have been just before I said it in the time delay. Yes, King Steve. Those are the only 2 because both of them were absolute shit at their fucking reigns.
Yeah. That's by their own judgment, though, because every time I look at one of their kings and I'm just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think you were all kind of shitty.
Not when
Unless you were liked by you, you were kind of shitty.
when both of them pretty much inspired several different rebellions against them.
Yeah.
You kind of have to go, okay, yeah, they were pretty shit, weren't they? Everyone fucking hated them. Yeah, they were not good kings.
Yeah, I think my most hated one out of the bunch is Richard II. I really hated him. I know he was probably psychologically cuckoo in the head, and I realize that's the thing too, but yeah, I hated him.
Oh, no, you want... Who was this?
Well, there was the one king who was mentally ill, and I felt bad for him.
Well, George III wasn't exactly all there.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking of the 6th. I can't remember if it was. I don't think it was George though. Can't remember which.
King George VI had a horrific stutter.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's him because I know one of them might have been possibly autistic. Like, I just can't remember which one. Like, he was like 6th something.
I don't know. Charles II was had a few screws loose.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see the list of.
He is a very well-known
English
figure in my
monarchs.
home state of Connecticut. It's because of him that we are known as the Constitution State. Because he came back and demanded our royal charter, and we said, "Fuck off, you." We hid it in the trunk of an oak tree.
Yeah,
no, that's a different dude. Yeah.
The 6th ones that it could be are there's James the 6th, there's Henry the 6th, Edward the 6th,
Edward the Sixth reigned for like 10 days.
William the 6th.
I think it was Henry.
Oh, sorry, George the 6th.
Yeah, George VI had the stutter. Edward VI abdicated after practically no time at all. He wasn't even coronated because he got involved with an American socialite who was also a divorcee, which is you don't do that.
Yeah, no, I think I'm thinking of Henry VI because it was something like he wasn't like it wasn't something like he was horrible or anything like that. I think it was just he was mentally not sound of mind. Like it was like he was not mentally handicapped, but I think it was autism or something like that. Like it from the description of them during of him during the documentary. But I think his reign led up to like a stupid amount of wars, and his wife was pretty much in charge of the country.
Well, he inherited the 100 Years' War.
Yeah.
He then had, let's see, what else? There were a couple different major things. Then he also ended up being involved in the War of the Roses.
Yeah. Way to go, dude.
And was also, I think there was one more major conflict that he was involved in. But yeah, the two major are 100 Years and War of the Roses. But he was on the, let me quickly double check, because yeah, he was the Lancastrian side of the War of the Roses. And then Edward the Sixth is the one that his portrait is probably one of the least flattering. Well, all his portraits are probably the least flattering portraits of someone, because he's a dude that really looks like a stern schoolmarm. There's really no other way to phrase that. Here, let me quickly pull this image up and I'll display what I mean.
Okay.
Share and...
I wouldn't be surprised here. Like I could see that.
See
You
what
are
I
the
mean?
weakest link. Goodbye.
Terry, Jesus Christ. You're a fan Bolin. It's not how you spell Bolin, by the way.
No, I could legit even see them using her head as like the bowling.
Oh, yeah.
And have it lit up in the lot. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that
But
poor
yeah.
kid. That poor kid.
Like I said, Edward the Sixth looks like a stern schoolmarm despite being a dude.
Well, wasn't he like super young though? Like he was just a kid.
Oh, his baby portraits are even more terrifying. And let's see, when did he
Isn't he
inherit?
Queen Elizabeth's brother too?
That's
And
Henry Fitzroy.
Fitzroy.
Oh no.
he-
Yeah, he was between. Yeah, somebody was between Henry VIII and Mary.
And that was
So he was Henry VIII's son that was then succeeded by Jane, who was disputed by Mary. And then she was in turn succeeded.
Made shorter.
Yep. But yeah, he was 10 years old when he acquired the throne. Because he was born in 1537 and died in, or sorry, not died, but reigned in 1547, ruled for 6 years and died.
Yeah, I remember this one because there was conflict between him and Mary because he was technically Protestant like Elizabeth was, but Mary was Catholic.
Yeah, and he's one of the ones that I fucking hate because of what he and his siblings did to the Bodleian Library.
Yeah.
I've told you guys about that, right?
Yeah.
For those who haven't heard the reason why I hate them. So, here, let me also show the picture of him, or the portrait of him as an infant, which, like I said, is even more terrifying than the school marm. And
I was thinking Edward VIII got involved with what's her face?
That
Oh, Simpson.
absolute melon of a head. So, the reason why I fucking hate him is he acquired the throne and he went to the library at Oxford, because at this point it wasn't known as the Bodleian. It wasn't known as the Bodleian until Bodley started funding everything. And he went, "This is a lovely library that you have. It's a shame that all these books were written by Catholics. Get rid of them."
Yeah, they're not the first or the last to do a book burning.
Then his sister came to power. And she went to the library and went, "This is a beautiful library. It's a shame that all these books were written by Protestants. Get rid of them. Also, kill your Protestant staff." Then her sister took the throne, went to the library and went, "This is a beautiful library. It's a shame that all these books were written by Catholics. Get rid of them and kill 4 of your Catholics."
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
effectively destroyed the entire library until Bodley got involved. And Bodley is... Well, Bodley was a fascinating man. Do any of you happen to know who Bodley was?
Not off the top of my head.
Bodley was effectively the chief ambassador, the master of spies, effectively. Also the man in charge of wet work for the crown. And
so this is after Francis Walsingham.
This is during the reign of, I want to say it's Elizabeth I.
That would be Francis Walsingham.
First, and let's see, did he get the position after him? Because it's Bodley and Thomas Bodley. versus Francis Walsinger, you said?
Walsingham. Very interesting man. Very terrifying man, actually.
Let's see when he served versus when Bodley served. So he served those dates. And yes, it looks like Bodley took over after him. Because he was out in 90 and Bodley took over after that, I believe. But yeah, so he took over that position from Walsingham and was extremely accomplished in that. Then he ended up retiring from that position effectively, but kept all his contacts, kept all of his ability to reach out and touch people, shall we say. And he went back to the library, which he had seen when he was younger, when it was still a beautiful library. And when he returned to look at it, the shelves were moldering. The building had a section of roof that had collapsed. There were barely any books, and damn near everything was destroyed. So he started throwing his rather impressive wealth behind completely rebuilding the library. And not only did he throw his wealth behind rebuilding the library, he also reached out to everyone that he knew, because he was the diplomat, spy master, and in charge of the wet work for the crown, to encourage all the people that he knew to also donate heavily to the library. And he would consider it a personal favor if they did so.
Is this a medieval tax break?
Not so much, because it didn't help them with their taxes. It just made it so that the man who was in charge of getting people killed liked them.
Oh, okay. So it's the other one. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's far more mafia than taxman. But yeah, he encouraged all of his associates to donate books to the library, to donate money in order to rebuild the library. He sunk most of his wealth into the effort and was able to revive the library and replenish most of its store. Made it absolutely beautiful and is credited with the survival of the library to the point where he's now named in the official name of the library, because it is now the Bodleian Library rather than the library at Oxford. Or the Oxford Library. It is the Bodleian. And it is beautiful. Yeah, especially the thing that is the most damning about the destroying a large number of the books, the library had the habit of recording in stone the people that had donated to the library in a sufficient quantity. And I can't remember which second or third son of a king it was, but one of the largest donators to the library early on was one of the members of the royal family who had an obscene number of books, considering at the time that he had these books, a book was depending on the type of castle you're looking at and how grand the castle you're looking at, a book was much more expensive than a castle, or about the same price as a very nice castle. And this particular noble donated, I think it was over 300 books at that time. Because it's good to be related to the king.
Yeah. Up until it's not. And then it's really, really not.
Yeah, but in the process of the three siblings coming in and going, get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it, a fair number of those books were destroyed.
Yeah.
Destroyed or lost, rather. Which, that is fucking painful. Because they were beautifully illuminated manuscripts. Because they were made for a fucking royal family member. And they got rid of a large number of them. Which again, that's painful.
So what you're saying is if you ever got into the British Royal Library, you'd be like in Sanguine porno land.
Oh, I love pretty much repositories of knowledge in general.
Mhm.
Which is why I've said before, one of the powers that... You know the standard question of if you could have any power in the world, what would it be?
Mm-hmm.
Or any power in any like sort of fiction or anything like that. One of the ones that's always to the top of my list is in the Dresden Files, which, by the way, Harry, what book are you on now?
I sort of misplaced my current book, so I don't want to admit how I'm sort of stuck. I'm too stubborn to buy more of them.
Damn it, Harry. Have you at least met the Codex yet?
No. I'm screwing up everything. I know I'm just ruining all your fun because you're being good and not talking about it while I'm around.
Yes.
Well, don't spoil it because Eve insisted I should probably read them.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Now it's not just me screwing everything up.
Dresden Files is
they
amazing.
are really good.
And the Codex has a power that I would fucking love. Though it is one that comes with a fair bit of drawback that Eve will know what I'm talking about. And anyone that's read the Dresden Files will know the Codex power and might know the drawback. But yeah, that is a power that is always towards the top of my list.
Well, it is 2 hours and almost 18 minutes since we started the show. I'm fine with going, but we normally would wrap things up around now.
I do have to get up in the morning and to go into the office for work.
So let's go around the horn and give our parting words. Shall we start with you, Snow?
Not really sure what you guys normally do for parting words, but
words of wisdom and then goodbye usually.
Yeah, whatever.
Words of wisdom. Oh, God in heaven.
Whatever you want to leave off on. You could leave off on quotes. You could leave off on something silly, a joke, a limerick. Just whatever the hell you want to be your final words for the stream.
Don't be afraid to look at or look into something that you find interesting, even as a hobby. Because hobbies, especially now, can do wonders for your mental health.
Very nice. Jen?
Well, earlier I was sitting there patting myself on the back because I think that Slimer joke was fantastic. You know, just saying that if he dropped the Snope in prison, it would be the first slime porn. But I'm sure somebody else has done that already. I'm sure that porn has been had.
Considering I'm pretty sure that Project Melody had a goo body, I think that might count.
I just had this image though of the Ghostbusters version of Slimer going to jail and then dropping the soap and being like, "Oops," and then the next image is like anime slime, slime girl.
Nice. Harry?
Do they still make soap on a rope? Because I remember when I was a kid, you know, you would get they would just have these terrible fragrances and things, but you could get Brute aftershave and cologne, and they also made Brute soap on a rope. I think Old Spice had soap on a rope at one point too. I never, as a little kid, quite understood what it was for.
Nice.
And then you saw police, and then you saw the Naked Gun series, and went, oh,
Oh. Yeah, you know, I mean, if anybody tells you that a belt and suspenders at the same time is overkill, just tell them to mind their own business.
Well, I need a belt to have my knife and to have my flashlight and various other shit. And the suspenders are just to keep the pants up. The belt's to carry everything. And for my parting words, I think since Snow started off with a happy note, I'll end off with my live in defiance of your memento defectus. And with that, have a good night all. The zoo is closed.
Later.
Good night.